There we go. Some minor technical difficulties with our wireless microphone, but we have that hooked up, so now you should be able to hear everything that's going on. Welcome to our Adult Sunday School class here at Calvary Baptist Church. So glad that you could join us. We're doing a topical study from the book of Wisdom, Proverbs. And we've been dealing with the different topics as we've gone through, and the last few weeks we have been focusing on relationships. But now we're going to change course a little bit and talk about emotions. There's a great deal that Proverbs has to say about how we conduct ourselves and how we interact with others, and it deals a lot with emotions. And this morning we're going to deal with anger, one of the strongest emotions. And there's a lot of verses, there's a lot of principles that Proverbs gives that help us understand how to deal with anger and how to conduct ourselves around it. So we're going to jump right in here. And normally I try to deal with the verses chronologically and just kind of go all the way through. But I've tried to rearrange them a little bit so that ones that are similar are maybe closer together. So we're not going through our verses chronologically, but hopefully a little bit more topically as we deal with anger. And so the first one, and you can follow along in your notes if you have them. You can go to our website, cometocalvary.ca, and our Sunday school notes are available for you to download there. But let's jump in Proverbs 19:19. The first one here. It says, "A man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if thou deliver him, yet thou must do it again." Anger is a chronic issue, and it will come up again and again. If you struggle with anger, it is a recurring problem. If you know somebody who is struggling with anger, if you're trying to help someone who is struggling with their anger, be ready for the long haul, because it is something that is very ingrained and it's hard to get rid of. It's hard to work through. So if you're going to help someone with anger, be ready for the long haul, because you'll have to help them again and again. It pops up regularly. A lot of times in our current society and in our world, we want everything to be a disease or just an insignificant thing. And so, I lost my temper and, it's okay. It doesn't happen very often. Or, I was just really frustrated. Things have been building up for a while. And we try to decrease the importance of things or the impact of things by just, calling it a disease, or it was just a momentary loss of control. But anger is one of those things that is a chronic issue. And when you struggle with it, it's something that you're going to have to work at very diligently. And if you're around somebody and trying to help somebody who is dealing with their anger, it's a long-term thing. It's going to come up again and again. Anger shows that there is an issue, that there is a character issue that needs to be addressed. So that was Proverbs 19:19. Now as we move on here, Proverbs 16 and verse 14. And again, I tried to organize these so that they were kind of together, and there's a couple verses here at the beginning that are just kind of standalone. That one in Proverbs here in Proverbs 16 and verse 14, it says, "The wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it." In ancient times, the king had the power of life and death. And if he was angry, it was a very terrible thing. And you see this described in Psalms and in a lot of other different places, just the power that a king had, and that authority. You shouldn't provoke, make them angry. You shouldn't push them to anger because of the authority, because of the power that they have. And it's especially something that they needed to watch out for in ancient times, because the king had the power of life and death. And so it says a wise man is someone who will understand that and try to appease that. It will try to not rile him up, to not rile up the authorities. In our day and age, in our society, that would show up in how we interact with authorities and leadership. Basically, the principle is don't provoke those who are in authority, who are in leadership. Don't provoke them to anger. Don't cause problems. Don't push authority. A wise person will understand the role that authority has and won't push, won't needle and frustrate authority. And to be very direct, that shows up in how we deal with police, how we deal with our own government. Don't push, don't prod, don't needle, don't provoke to anger. Because a wise man is someone who will pacify a situation. It is more a fool that will try to provoke people, try to make problems. That's Proverbs 16:14. And now Proverbs 15 and verse 1. It can be very difficult to deal with anger, and so Proverbs gives us a number of guides, a best methods plan on how to deal with anger when it comes up, how we are supposed to respond to it. And Proverbs 15:1 is one of those passages. It tells us and gives us wisdom on how to deal with it. 15 verse 1, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. When you are faced with anger, often our first instinct is to respond in kind. When anger shows itself, it is often in our response to react against that, to put up barriers, to get angry myself. If someone else raises their voice, it's only natural in a conversation that I start raising my voice as well. But the best way to deal with anger in those situations, as it says, is a soft answer turns away wrath. It can be hard to respond to anger with calm, but that is the way that you deal with it. So as a situation escalates, make sure that you maintain your calm. Now, I wrote in here also Proverbs 25:15 because it includes, and it's a wonderful verse, and I wanted to include it here at this point. Proverbs 25:15 says, by long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. Patience, calm, can deal with a situation, and it is the best way to respond to any situation. Even somebody like a prince who is in leadership, the best way to deal with that is calm, to forbear. When you could respond in anger, to forbear is to control that, to respond appropriately, to respond correctly. And a soft tongue breaketh the bone. The bone is one of the hardest things, and even the hardest things, even the greatest anger, the hardest services, the hardest people can be broken down when we remain calm, when we hold to that, when we keep our calm. So a soft answer turneth away wrath. That is the best way to deal with anger. Keep your calm. Tied in with that is Proverbs 16:32. Proverbs 16:32 says, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. In our society, we exalt those who have great accomplishments. And often those who have the greatest accomplishments, we overlook character flaws because of the value that we place in great accomplishments. But in reality, what we should lift up, what we should exalt, what we should most look for is great character, not great accomplishments. So he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, someone who is just a tremendous and powerful force. Well, someone even better than that is a patient person. And whoever has control of themselves, who is able to maintain their calm, is better off, if we were to rank people, is of a higher rank than someone who had the ability, the military might, to overthrow an entire city. So often in our society, we exalt those who accomplish great things, and as we do that, we excuse poor character. But the Bible says the principles that we see here is to exalt great character first. So it's a wonderful principle. It's a wonderful principle. When you're looking for someone to hire, make sure that you're looking at great character before you look at great accomplishments. Next, Proverbs 6 and verse 34. Proverbs 6:34 says, "For jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance." The strongest anger is often driven by jealousy. So that's something we need to be aware of. That's something that we need to keep and remember in the back of our minds. If you notice, and if you're beginning to feel like you may be jealous of someone else's accomplishments, or there might be some envy or something there, you have to make sure that you are in control of yourself, because jealousy is one of the greatest drivers of anger, of wrath. Jealousy is the rage of a man. This isn't just an anger, it's just an out of control thing. So when jealousy is played with, when it allows that to get into our lives and into our hearts, it just builds and it runs amok. And it takes something in control and just throws it out of whack. My study Bible said this. It says, "While a court can be satisfied when a fine is paid, a jealous man can never be satisfied." That's that last portion there. "Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance." Jealousy is a very dangerous thing. It motivates anger. And when jealousy motivates anger, it is very, very difficult to deal with that and to calm that down. Proverbs 12 and verse 16 now. "A fool's wrath is presently known, but a prudent man covereth shame." Having a short fuse reveals your character. I've heard it a number of different times as an excuse. That's just part of who he is. He just gets angry sometimes. It's just a part of who he is. You just have to deal with that. Well, anger's the sort of thing that is a character problem, not a built-in part of who you are. While it may be common for you to get angry, that is not a justification for you to continue to do so just because it's who you are. It's who you are is never an excuse to not deal with flaws. Having a short fuse reveals your character. It reveals that there is a deficiency in character that needs to be dealt with. And I included this little commentary, or this little insight from a commentary. "A prudent man knows how to ignore insult and to exercise self-control." It is a wise person, it is a knowledgeable, it is a proper response to ignore insult and to exercise self-control. Doesn't mean that you ignore when something is wrong and ignore something done wrong. It just means that when someone is needlessly insulting, when someone is insulting A prudent man, a wise man, has the ability to just push that aside without becoming emotional and without responding in kind. So a prudent man, he knows how to ignore an insult and to exercise self-control and not allow himself to be out of control, to lose it when someone would say something. He doesn't have a short fuse. And Proverbs 14:17 is very similar to that in the same vein here. Proverbs 14:17 says, "He that is soon angry dealeth foolishly, and a man of wicked devices is hated." The first portion of that, having a short fuse, means that you will do things impulsively without thinking of the consequences. This is part of the reason why anger, if you're angry, it's not just who you are and you got to deal with it. It's something that you have to work on because it is damaging. It damages those around you. It damages yourself. Anger is something that has to be worked on. It's not something that you should be content to live with. Oh, I'm just angry sometimes. But it is something that is going to cause pain. It's something that wreaks havoc. Having a short fuse means that you are an unpredictable danger. It's not something that is just part of who you are and that people are just going to have to learn to live with. It needs to be dealt with. Just a few verses later, in Proverbs 14:29, it says, "He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding, but he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly." A man who is patient when provoked shows great insight, shows great understanding. It shows wisdom. And that's what it is that we're talking about in several of these verses. It's someone who is trying to provoke you, trying to push your buttons and push you to becoming angry. Well, a wise man, someone of great understanding, is slow to wrath. One of the things that I want to make sure that I'm clear about is there is a time for anger. There is a righteous anger. There is a proper time to be indignant, to be angry at something. But it is a trait of wisdom to be slow to anger. A man who is patient when provoked shows great insight. And a short-tempered man is actually lifting up foolishness for all to see. If you struggle with anger, what you are doing with your life is you are lifting up foolishness, useless things. You are lifting those and exalting those in everybody's eyes. So an angry person is not someone that everybody's afraid of and, oh no, they're angry, be careful with their angry. That is actually someone who is lifting up, who is exalting, who is giving an example of foolishness to everyone that's around them. A short-tempered man is actually lifting up foolishness for all to see. Then the next chapter, Proverbs 15 and verse 18. "A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife." The word strife is also used to mean a lawsuit or a court case. And the principle is that trouble, both physically and legally, follow an angry man everywhere he goes. So if you're dealing with anger, you have to be prepared and ready to just constantly be in trouble. There are some people that throw their hands up because they just can't see. They get so frustrated. Why is everybody against me? Why is this always happening to me? Well, if you're angry, it's because that naturally follows where you go. If you struggle with anger, if you know somebody who is perpetually angry, who struggles maintaining their temper and their control of themselves, they will naturally trouble, both physical violence, physical trouble, and legal trouble follow them. Where anger goes, both of those kinds of trouble follow right behind. "A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife." Then jumping a few chapters later in Proverbs 29. Proverbs 29 and verse 8. Scornful men bring a city into a snare, but wise men turn away wrath. The simplest of principles here is that anger has a wide-ranging impact. And a small handful of uncontrolled, anger-filled people can have an impact on an entire city. They can bring ruin on an entire city, bring a whole city into problems. Anger is not just a minor issue that we momentarily struggle with. It is a huge issue that has wide-ranging consequences and tremendous impact. Anger can have a wide-ranging impact, but a wise person understands how to curve that, how to tone that down, how to turn that away. The book of Proverbs holds up as examples a lot of different kinds of things, but one of the things that it holds highly, and one of the things that it exalts more than most, is a peacekeeper. Someone who has the ability to just make peace, to restore calm, and to restore clear heads. It has a great deal of positive things to say about a person who has that ability to just, let's take a moment, let's calm down here. That is a tremendously valued character. As I said from the verse before, we often magnify great achievements when the book of Proverbs seems to magnify a peacekeeper, someone who has the ability to keep calm. That is a tremendous bonus of character, a tremendous character. Then Proverbs 27 and verse 3. A stone is heavy, and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Anger is a burden that grinds you down. It is one of the heaviest burdens to bear. Anger just seeps into all the corners and destroys things. And far heavier than carrying a huge stone on your back or a load of sand, far heavier than any of those things, is the burden that comes from dealing with anger, from struggling with anger. It is a far weightier burden, far heavier than them both. It is the heaviest, one of the heaviest burdens that a person can bear. If you struggle with anger, fall on your knees before God, because you are carrying a burden that is just smushing you into the ground. Proverbs 19:11. It says, "The discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression." Self-control is underrated. Again, I've said it a number of times. We have to be careful with the things that we exalt, because there are some biblical characters that God treats as most valuable, and self-control is one of them. I want to read what my study Bible had to say. It says, "Glory is literally a beautiful adornment. When through discretion a person gains patience, he gains the admirable capacity to pass over it when someone sins against him. Again, this is not a permissiveness of sin. You've sinned, that's no big deal. But this is someone who has done some wrong against you, who has either offended you or is trying to provoke you. A wise man, a person with discretion, gains patience and has the ability to pass over a wrong that is done to them. Now again, this isn't a permissiveness. This isn't sin is no big deal to me. This is, I have been offended, but I can move beyond that. You are trying to provoke me, but I can remain calm. A person that has that ability to defer anger and to have that patience, it says they are beautifully adorned before God. Again, you see this marvelous character, this inward character that is exalted. In God's eyes, there is a beautiful adornment that is placed on someone who has the patience and the capacity to pass over an insult, to keep calm and to not react in anger. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture there of a crowning achievement, of a beautiful ornament given to someone as a mark of glory, of appreciation, of accomplishment. To have the patience to be able to remain calm even when someone is insulting or is trying to provoke you. I think we'll probably finish off there. It seems like an appropriate place to finish off, and we'll just wrap up anger next week. But we'll finish with that. Glory is literally a beautiful adornment. The discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. So I'll finish by saying self-control is underrated. And it is one of the most highly sought after, the most highly exalted characters that God talks about, that God appreciates. Self-control, patience, and calm in the midst of anger. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we'll see you soon.